Is it okay to make lazy art? I think so, but before I get into that, let me tell you a quick story. There was this little art project I would do every fall as a child. Like literally, I couldn't wait until the leaves started to fall from the trees. I would go outside and I would pick 5 or 6 of my favorite leaves, the brightest, prettiest ones. I would bring them inside and I would trace them onto paper and then try as best I could with my Crayolas. Figure out how to make the colorful marks on the page look like the beautiful leaf that I held in my hand. It was such a simple project, but I just couldn't get enough of it. And it became such a nostalgic part of my fall. And to this day, I'm 45 years old and I still love this project. But I feel guilty for loving this project, especially as an adult, because it just feels plain old lazy because I'm tracing. I'm not really using any skill, right? Okay, I set you up there. I say wrong. Tracing, there should be no shame, friends. Tracing is your friend. And also art projects that bring you a lot of joy and kind of fill you up inside with all the good stuff. I say yes, 100% always, yes, do it. Why am I getting so excited? We put a lot of pressure on ourselves as artists, whether we're beginners or professionals or somewhere in the hazy in between. We think there is a perfect way, the best way, the right way to do everything, and even if there is, it doesn't mean we can't indulge in the fun stuff once in a while, or if you're me, more often than not. Okay, friends, let's jump into this. It's a quick one, and I can't wait to share. Here we go. Today I'm using Arch's Cold Press and my Art for Joy's Sake palette, a pencil. Use whatever you have, use what you love. I'm gonna link all the supplies below. And you're gonna need some leaves. And if you don't have the beautiful, gorgeous red fall leaves and yellows like I do, just use some inspiration photos online. You can print them out, cut them out, and then trace them. Or just be extra and go ahead and draw them. I actually have a whole video about the whole print, cut, and trace thing I just mentioned. I'm gonna link it below. Okay, grab your first leaf. And friends, you're not gonna be super precious about this because there's a lot of ins and outs and undulations in a leaf. So you're gonna lay it down as flat as it'll go. And let me tell you, a little tip, grab leaves that aren't really starting to dry out yet. You want leaves that have just fallen, or else they're gonna just be brittle and get everywhere. Lay that leaf down flat and then holding your pencil or brush pen or whatever you're using almost perpendicular to the page, you want to trace. And you're going to have to take some artistic license here. You're going to have to, decide if you're going to be super, super exacting about your trace or if you're going to be more loosey-goosey like me. And friends, that's the process for laying out your composition. Just grab a leaf and repeat. And of course, the laws of composition definitely will help you out here. So my big maple leaf, I wanted to make sure that she was kind of just off center as my focal point. And I'm building everything around her. That is a maple leaf, right? Oh gosh, and this big yellow one, that's an oak, right? Oh gosh, I hope I have this right. Or y'all gonna come for me in the comments. If you're curious about the laws or the rules or just the fundamentals of composition, I have a video on that too. I'll link it below. And then of course you're gonna be confronted with decisions like, do I want this leaf that I'm tracing right at the moment to overlap or go behind a leaf that I traced earlier? But friends, that's you. You do you. And friends, there's really no right or wrong here. I mean, certainly there's gonna be good decisions and then better decisions, but I don't want you to put all that pressure on yourself. Because remember, this is loosey-goosey fun here. We're not trying to be super serious, except serious about having the loosey-goosey fun. Okay, I'll stop. I promise, kind of. I usually would take a few moments in between the tracing to just kind of perfect the stems and, tweak the silhouettes and edit those silhouette shapes a little bit. But again, you can just kind of go at it in the way that feels comfortable for you. Maybe you want to be super, super precise about your tracing. And if that is your joy zone, go for it. All right, I'm gonna zip it for now and let you enjoy the rest of this composition being built. also love to add some freehand elements. And this was a compositional decision down in the bottom right corner, and I feel like I'm probably gonna need some of it in the bottom left corner as well. I didn't have any smaller leaves. All of my leaves were 2 different sizes, kind of big and then a little bit less big, so to speak. And so I wanted to add a few smaller, tinier leaf clusters for visual balance and interest. So feel free to go in there and add some freehand stuff that you feel super comfortable with. Another little tip, friends, I would actually recommend not going too big with this piece. I did a practice run on this because it's been a hot minute since I've done this project of my childhood. And I went larger. I went on like a 12-inch square piece of watercolor paper. And honestly, I got kind of bored and overwhelmed, and it was just too much repetition. So I'm down more at this 7x10 size, and I filled up the page a lot quicker, and I'm staying motivated, and I think it's just a really good size. All right, friends, time for the fun stuff. We're gonna paint. Primarily, I'm going to be using a wet on dry technique. And then as I add more color and water to the page, it will naturally become wet on wet. If you're curious about the difference between those 2 techniques, I'm going to link below my Watercolor Mastermind. It's a great one to watch for sure. Heading in with some red, and literally I'm just grabbing the color and then filling in the edges. So I'm kind of coloring in between my pencil lines, I guess is the best way to describe it. And every time I go back to the color to reload my red, I actually start grabbing different colors. So I've got a pink going, and now I'm getting into brown. And we have a visitor. Did you notice? And just keep building out, keeping that wet edge. A wet edge in watercolor, especially when you're working in a larger area, is really important. So that edge, that active painting edge that you're working on, that you're gradually moving away from and filling the empty space behind it, you need to keep that damp. So as I'm building out my wet edge and adding different colors, I'm just naturally filling this big maple leaf in a really beautiful and juicy way. So notice I'm going from reds to pinks in that bottom left part of the leaf, browns and yellows and golden tones, and back to reds. And oh gosh, this is so much fun. All right, I'm grabbing some more water on my brush, some yellows here, and I'm just keeping that wet edge moving out towards the right side of the leaf. And friends, this is the technique. This is the golden technique that we're gonna use throughout this entire project. And here's why. I'm not gonna get fancy. I'm not gonna switch things up, because this technique standalone is so meditative and so relaxing and so good for the soul. So why not? Now stick around, because I've got a fun little twist coming in a few moments, and I definitely want you to have your say. So coming up. Just a little tip, friends, because we're working quickly all in one setting where 2 leaves meet, they're both going to be wet or damp at the very least, right? So if you don't want them to bleed into one another very obviously, leave a little bit of a white margin between the 2. You can see my main maple leaf and then that yellow oak leaf have that little white margin in between, which really helps from things getting too messy and too crazy. Another little tip, friends, remember your page is going to stay damp. It's going to stay wet, depending on the brand of watercolor paper you're using, but it's going to be damp. So go back in, that's your opportunity. I went back into that maple leaf minutes after I had applied the original paint layer, but it was still damp, so I was able to dab in a little more of that dark brown. And that's when you start to see really beautiful, like velvety textures happen in watercolor when you do the damp on damp technique. Are you having a good time, friends? Are you gonna try this? I've gotta know. I'm pretty sure you're probably having a good time. But what I wanna know in comments right now is if you're going to try this, or have you, you're probably gone. You paused, you're running out in the yard, you're going and grabbing your leaves. I hope so. Let me know when you come back. I wanna hear all about it. And while you're at it, when you come back, go ahead and give this video a boop. That's a like. It's gonna help others find this super satisfying project. All right, friends, here's the twist. Let me know how I should finish this painting, because I really am coming up with a blank. Let me know, should I do a super juicy, inky blue background? Or should I cut these out and paste them onto something else? Or just go ahead, get in comments and let me know how I should finish this. And then I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to go with the most recommended or the most suggested idea for finishing this painting, and I'm gonna make a video out of it. And so until next time, I wish you so much happy painting.